Enter madman, stage left. The audience rises and holds their breath. They let the vampires into their house, pretend they don't see when the teeth come out. Put a band-aid on their throat. No one wants to rock the boat, and no one wants to talk about it. You're not supposed to talk about it. The curtain rises and the players come out. Webs of light spinning from their mouths. Start looking, listen for a little while. Attention to the men behind the curtain. Just look away when you see the blood spurting down to a steady drip. I promise to leave you a little bit. I'll be back for another drink tomorrow. I love the taste of your terror and your sorrow bathing in your blood. It's never enough. But no one wants to talk about it. It's safer not to talk about it. I cut my strings, no more bowing to the master. I tried to run, but they only came faster. Now I stand my ground. I ain't backing down. Silver bullets in my pistol in my holster. My will is strengthened and my confidence is bolstered. Don't test my resolve. Don't test my resolve.
Howdy there, folks, and welcome to the Iron Mountain Hour. It is Sunday, March the 12th, 2023. My name is Cliff, and you're doing what over there? I don't know what these guys are doing.
Gremlin finger.
I don't know what they're doing, but that's Tim and that's Dustin as we head down that way, and they're over there disrupting class as normal. You know, I'm up here, you know, trying to write on the blackboard, and as I turn around, they're taking bites of my sandwiches, sticking whoopee cushions in my chair.
Never did a
Don't
sandwich.
leave your sandwiches out in the open for
Foolish move.
opportunists.
What can I say? I do leave them wide open with the opportunity.
Not remember a sandwich being left out open, but I do remember Mr. Lyons. So shout out Katie, Aaron.
I like Mr. Lyons. He was a good
Yeah, he
history
came
teacher.
into class, and first of all, he was one of the only teachers that would demand your attention because he had a big boomy voice and he had, had that old man authority, even though back then he was probably like 40. But he had like that old man authority when he would talk to you. But I remember I had one class, I'd heard rumor of this, but I had one class that was always around lunchtime, and he would teach during that class, but the whole time he was teaching, he'd be eating like some random vegetable. And it wouldn't be like like a banana, obviously, is a fruit, but like,
Eggplant.
yeah, random crap. Like one day he had like a basket of radishes up there he's eating, and one day he was totally just crunching into a white onion,
Yeah.
just here's an apple.
My mom does that.
Big heirloom tomatoes, but he would just sit there and eat just a whole vegetable,
Yep.
like it was a hamburger. And I always thought that was funny.
I have an onion allergy, so when someone says, eating an onion like an apple.
Yeah, that was rough. That was the one I was like,
Yeah.
ugh. Of course, I think radishes are hot. I think they're
Black radish.
a bit abrasive, but the onion, I was like,
They're not cool, but they're a little radish.
I think Coach Lyons, one of the reasons I liked him so much, and it demanded my attention because he personally cared about what he was teaching. He was teaching Tennessee history, or was it U.S. history?
I had U.S. history.
I think it was U.S. Yeah, U.S. history. That's what it was. But because I remember talking about the Civil War a lot, and he knew so much outside of what was in the textbook, and he really cared about it. Was interested in it. So that was why I felt like he demanded attention. But the booming voice and the imposing figure. He's probably 6'2" or 6'3", and
Oh, he's our size.
is he?
Yeah.
Oh man.
We were kids. We thought he was.
Yeah, I guess so.
He's
Well, I was 16 at the time, so no, he seemed tall. I guess because I was sitting down every time I saw him.
Yeah.
But that was a good class. I apologize for missing last week. I really wanted to do the Tesla tech and the weather weapons and all this good stuff, geoengineering, wireless power transmission, death rays, all kinds of good stuff to get into there. I had a terrible headache and was unable to sit down here in the lights and talk to you folks. So appreciate you bearing with me, and thanks for joining us on Wednesday. We had a good talk. And the Sunday before that, we talked about zombies. We talked about, lore, mythology, what would be going on there scientifically, the history of the zombie movie, all kinds of good stuff. It was a lot of fun. The allegories to real life, and what was Romero saying, what were other zombie movie creators saying with their commentary on society.
Not to segue back to that, but there is a good YouTube channel called Thought Potato. He goes through and writes out these things.
T-H-O-T.
That's what I was thinking too. THOT.
Like,
Like a sexy potato.
well, I mean, that might be a whole different page.
That spud over there.
Mashed potatoes.
But he's done several things. He's done them on vampires, werewolves, zombies. Like he writes them out like basically like a coroner would, and tells you like scientifically what's going on with the viruses that causes them.
So Thought Patrol. No, I'm just kidding.
Potato.
I'm just kidding.
Potato.
Thought Potato. Yeah,
I just
and
thought that'd be kind of cool to go watch. They're each like 20 minutes.
in our episode 74 before that, we did with Wilbur the Kilb of East Tennessee Graphics and Vodka Moon. And he
Also segues to vampire since his characters.
yeah, he's doing the character of the vampire running the plasma bank. That's been a real good episode for us. It's a lot of people have watched it, a lot of people have liked it. So go check that one out if you missed it. We had a lot of fun making it, and we'll definitely look forward to having Wilbur back in the near future. We're also going to be doing another visit with Moose Roberts sometime here coming up. We've confirmed, we just haven't got a date together. We're also going to make an album with Moose, I think, at some point. We kind of informally agreed on it, and
Yeah, the last show it was like making an album.
Yep. So that'll be a lot of fun. Especially because Moose, when we show up, we'll either go to his house or his friend's studio, and we will walk in, and we'll carry our instruments in. Moose will say, "Here's what I'm going to play. Y'all play along." And we'll play, and then we'll be like, "What did we just do there? What just happened?" And then a few weeks later, we'll hear an album that Moose and probably Steve have produced and added extra instruments on and drums and lots of stuff that, to make it sound good. And Moose will add vocals. And he does them impromptu too every time. He sits down with the music. He never writes his vocals down. He sits down, plays the music, and listens to it a couple times, and then just sings it. Comes up with some brilliant stuff. So it'll be a lot of fun. Hey, Honey Pie, she's after them brains. And Alvin, it's nice to have you back with us, brother. Mm-hmm. Yes, sir. So I bet you can probably contribute a lot to this conversation tonight. And that's one of the best things about this show, is because I'm not up here to, necessarily try to teach you a whole lot of stuff. I'm here to start conversations about a lot of this stuff, probably I'm hoping to, in my local community, and with folks like Alvin and Joe and a few others around here. We have reached that market, but a lot of times it's going nationwide because the topics are so universal. Including with the smart pole and smart city agenda. And that all kind of ties into, it stems out from what we're going to talk about tonight, which is Nikola Tesla. And he's been in the news lately because people were saying that, oh, this was Tesla technology causing this earthquake in Turkey, or this was Tesla technology causing this horrible weather event here in Spill. Speaking of which, I hope you're good out there, Spill. I saw they had some really bad flooding in California. I'm not exactly sure. I know you're near Mendocino, or you were. I can't remember, but either way, hope you're doing all right out there. Hope we hear from you tonight. But lots of crazy weather events, as there always seem to be. Volcanic eruptions. There's something going on all the time. This is a big world, and the United States is a big country, and we're in a big continent. So it's not surprising that we're going to see a lot of this stuff, but a lot of people have been blaming Tesla technology for all this. And a lot of these technologies that they're blaming do stem back and have their roots in the mind of Nikola Tesla. For us, a lot of the stuff that we use every day, cell phones, wireless communication network was one of the things that he really worked hard on. And he demonstrated the ability as soon as, I think it was, 1890, something like that, when Hertz invented radio. And Tesla was infatuated with the technology, and he came up with his own version of it, like a lot of these inventors did back then. And he wasn't the only one, but he did come up with a way to transmit power in a short range wirelessly, and he could demonstrate using a spark generator where you would transmit a spark to another receiver across the room, basically using a Tesla coil or some kind of battery, some kind of power source. So he demonstrated this back before 1900. And like I said, the idea of the cell phone network, the internet, all this stuff was conceived by Tesla as far back as then, and that's what a lot of his work was aimed at, was trying to achieve many of the things that we have right now. So, what are your favorite myths, rumors, stories, legends? There's all kinds of stuff out there about Tesla, and there's a lot of true information out there. There's a lot of suspicious information. There's a lot of missing information, and there's a lot of people who make a lot of tall tales about any of these ideas. So, what's your favorite legend? I want to say that instead of myth, but your favorite lore or legend of Tesla?
The fact that he's such a good person that fucking David Bowie played him in a movie.
I didn't know that. Alvin said, it was one Professor John Trump who collected all Tesla's effects and files after death. Yeah, that's right. He was brought in by the FBI. They contracted him. I think he was a professor at MIT or something like that at the time. Or maybe he was before, but he was a gifted electrical engineer, and he came in and basically said, well, Tesla's not been doing much of anything over the last years, because he was 86 years old when he died. But Trump said, he's not really been working on anything new, and all this stuff is more philosophical than theoretical than actual practical physics. So they did hide all of it, though, and sealed it up until a couple of years ago. I think it was 2016 they had some released, and in 2018 they had more released, and we're going to get into where that might be showing itself a little bit later.
There's still stuff that's not been released, or stuff that's like missing.
Yeah, there's a lot of missing documents from it, and he lost a lot of notes. At one time he had a fire in his New York lab, and I think it was 1895, and lost a lot of his older research and kind of had to start all over again. But not start all over again, but had a significant speed bump along his way. But probably the most famous one I think of when I hear him, and it's partially, I believe it was South Park that did it, that probably made it more famous, was the current wars between Tesla and Edison. Now Tesla, he was a Serbian immigrant, and when he came over to the United States, he did work for one of Edison's companies right off the bat. And there were, I think there were about three main power companies at the time. Electricity was a pretty new device and a pretty new technology. And Tesla claimed that he came up with the idea for the dynamo in 1880 and the hydroelectric dam, which is one of the reasons I want to talk about Wilbur Dam, because it's I think it's the second oldest hydroelectric dam on this system that the TVA takes care of. And it was actually it was finished in 1912. So it's a pretty neat piece of technology to think that it's still working today.
More Tesla lore. Okay, indirectly, because, he was the one that perfected and put out for alternating current. Mm-hmm. Back whenever stuff was still being used as direct current, like those big tramways and stuff in New York, they would arc really bad all the time, and people would have to like dodge them. So that's where the baseball team got their name, the Dodgers.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Because they had to, had to dodge the arcs, because people got electrocuted, and a lot of people died from being electrocuted from those tramways.
Yeah, if I didn't mention it, Alvin put in the chat that John Trump is uncle to Donald Trump, and Donald Trump mentioned it. Oh yeah, kind of coyly. Oh yeah, that Tesla guy. Yeah, I think my uncle, got some of his papers and looked through that. He was a very smart man, John Trump. And that kind of leads right us to the Trump time travel theory. If anybody's heard of that, if we have time tonight, we'll get into that. If not, we won't. But it's pretty fun. Now we got Alvin talking about the war is actually between J.P. Morgan resisting Tesla's use of AC power and paid Edison to fight with him. To fight him with DC. Yeah, and he says Steinmetz actually discovered AC current and shared the discovery with Tesla. So yeah, Tesla, was trying to get investment into the use of AC current. He felt like it was better, and Edison wanted to use DC current, which is direct current with batteries or some other method of storing the charge, and rather than having alternating current, which is what we use in homes and things like this today, where you plug it in. Well, one of the famous parts of that story, I think, is the elephant, where Edison, in order to show that Tesla's technology of AC was dangerous, he had an elephant stand on a steel plate and electrocuted the elephant with a lead on either side of it, using AC current to show that it was dangerous, and like electrocuted and killed an elephant in front of a crowd of people. At least that's the legend. I'll be honest, I haven't read anything particular about that, so I don't know 100% that that's true. But that was what was depicted in I think it was South Park. So there was one of those raunchy cartoons that are so funny.
For the time frame, considering what people did to some elephants, including locally.
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't have any hard time believing it.
Yeah. Been out of color for back then.
Steinmetz was actually good friends with Edison, so that shows you Edison was paid handsomely to fight for AC for JP. Yeah, and I've heard a lot of different legends about that too, especially with the Wardenclyffe Tower we're going to get into earlier. But that's one of the there's I guess 3 different explanations for you hear why we didn't have the Wardenclyffe Tower and the worldwide electrical grid, and I do want to get into those a little bit later. Because those are so common, commonly said, especially in conspiracy circles, that you don't know which one is true or not. So there's the idea that J.P. Morgan didn't want to fund it because he didn't want to there was no way to put a meter on it. That was probably the most common one I heard.
I heard he also had a lot of backing in copper, which is what power lines are.
That's another one. He had investment in power line materials, including rubber. He had investments in rail. All his friends, Carnegie's, they had investments in the power line company. So all these guys had a lot of money tied up in that. So that's another one. And another one is that it wasn't working right, so he didn't want to invest any more money in it. But we'll get into that story here in just a little bit. Don't want to get sidetracked on that just yet. Hey, what's up, Honey Pie? Oh, yeah. And we got a few interesting tidbits about Tesla that I want to go over. Because we're gonna be talking about him in terms of weather weapons, and we're gonna be talking in terms of particle beams and ionospheric heating and things like this. Things he really theorized and conceived of, but never was able to complete that we know of in his lifetime. So, probably the most famous invention is the Tesla coil, right? Everybody's heard of the Tesla coil, where it's discharges high intensity. I think it's a low voltage, but or low intensity, high voltage. I can't remember which. But either way, it's not real dangerous to be around it. You can hold up a metal glove to it, a steel gauntlet in one of these places that has them in demonstrations, and it'll zap you and zap the metal and ground out and not hurt you. But that's probably the most famous one. And a lot of people heard of the Wardenclyffe Tower, where he wanted to have wireless power transmission and wireless communication, even talking about sending videos and pictures, and I think he had an idea of being able to photograph inside of your eye while you were thinking and try to capture people's thoughts into a photographic camera. So he had a lot of ideas that probably, wouldn't exactly bear out. But I did see in the news the other day that they have an AI brain scanner that reads the brain scan. Yeah, tell us about it, Dustin.
I saw something of that, and it basically, dang. Now that you said that, I kind of forgot.
Well, it's the AI it scans the
MRI
the MRIs of your brain, and it can recreate with a certain degree of accuracy what you're thinking about based on the data from the scans.
I'll have to believe it to see it.
Same here, but that's what was in the news. And
I think they'd have to use an fMRI, and even at that level, I don't think they'd know your individual thoughts. I think they just know your basically like they'd know the heightened sense of emotions and that sort of thing, and maybe analytically what sort of thing you're thinking about, but I don't think they could get it exact.
Well, the story is that they're supposed to basically be able to collect that already using human beings, but by collecting that data over time and having an AI examine the data, that then that AI can put together a long series of those data and, have an idea that's, within a reasonable degree of accuracy. I can't remember what it was, but be able to create a physical object that you're thinking about. Or an image of it. I don't
think so, because it's not cookie cutter. It's not like if we took Cliff's brain and set it on the table, and we took Goth's brain and set them on the table, that if we located the section of your brain where we think about the love of your parents, for example, they're not going to be in the same location because your neurons grow. Like it's a growing thing that grows out, and it might be on the same region, like where your touch is on the same spot, but it's not like there's a certain neuron to talk about your uncle. And that's the neuron where Cliff's uncle is right here, and this is Goth's uncle. So, maybe they've got the brain mapped out on a much more intricate level than I'm aware of. I just don't think they've got the brain science figured out that much to tell the AI even what to look at. Maybe.
They can hype up a lot of these scientific articles at times and make one of the best examples I can think of is, the moon is going to be the closest ever. It's going to be the red, blue, bloody super moon. The bazillionth size the skies are normal in the regular sky. And if you go out there, and if you don't particularly observe the moon rise normally, when you see the moon rise over the horizon, it looks much larger at the edge of the sky. So if you go out to watch the sky, the super moon or whatever, of course it's going to look larger, especially if you're not, you don't usually watch the full moon rise. But it's really not that much different. It's not.
It is, like you said, it is, but it's not drastic.
Yeah, and a lot of times they'll do it with planets too, and they'll kind of make it sound like it's a once in a lifetime event when you have a conjunction of some planets in the sky or something like this. And
also depends on time of year too.
Yeah,
I'll give you one.
Axial tilt. And
imagine they want to recreate the time in your brain that you went sailboating, and Goth never went sailboating. You see what I'm saying? Like it's like a whole cluster of
I was like, I've never
in
been
a fictitious area where you're a avid sailboater or whatever.
I don't know.
Good imagination. So
I don't know. Maybe at some point they will have the ability to look through all your ion proton channels and all that stuff and really actually tell what I just really doubt it, because it's not every brain is the same. They're all different.
Well, if I were to be the devil's advocate, I would say they were scanning. If they scanned enough brains, the AI will be able to pick out and detect the differences between that, because it can scan so much data compared to what a human being can. It can, millions of times more comparisons can be made. So I'm not saying it's necessarily going to be more accurate.
It's not the AI I have a problem with. I think they can get the AI there quicker than they can get the brain, because they just don't have the brain mapped out the way people might think they have it.
Well, I think though, based on what their percentages of if they're right, okay, say if they know they're right when they get it a certain percentage, that adds to their data of what can be useful to determining whether what their person is thinking about. So I don't know. I don't find it so far fetched. I think too, like I said, if you think of a red apple or something, and you think of a red apple, and they scan everything in your brain when you're thinking of that red apple. They can eventually come to recognize what part of your brain light up when you think of that red apple. And if other people think of a red apple, different parts of their brain may light up. But by scanning so many people's brains...
But what if someone has never seen an apple before? You see what I'm saying?
Then that's an anomaly. That's why you have an AI, because you're scanning so many different data points.
This might be something I'm sure maybe this is common knowledge at this point, but maybe people don't know this. The idea that human beings are depressed because of chemical deficiencies is a complete theoretical, nonsensical lie. It just doesn't exist. And it's completely based off of research they did all the way back in the 40s. Because the truth is, you can't stick a turkey baster or a thermometer in somebody's ear and start to figure out, try to figure out what their levels of their dopamine are. And so it's all up and down regulation. And so we've got this whole industry of up regulation, down regulation, and it's been a long time since I've done this stuff, but it's like the more chemicals you put into the brain, it starts sucking off receptors. So you're sad because of a reason, and then we go to a doctor because we want to accept our reason, and they give you a drug to fix it. It momentarily fixes it until your brain realizes you didn't fix the external problem. I know maybe that sounds like that's a bunch of hoodoo coming from somebody who doesn't have a degree, but I promise you, chemical imbalances in the brain are not the reason people are depressed. People are depressed because society is kind of awful and they won't deal with their own lives. And so we've built up like 70 years of research that's basically based on lies. And so brain research, I promise you, is not where they think. It's just not where it's at yet. So I think there's a whole lot of assumptions front loaded onto the front of psychology that are gonna kind of mess with your AI is what I'm saying.
Gotcha.
I just think that part of the science is what's going to hold it back, not the AI itself.
That's possible. The way I'm thinking, if I understand it correctly, though, is they're only using the measured data, straight from the MRIs or the fMRIs, maybe if that's what it is, that they just using that they can tell what a person's thinking about. Now, is that accurate? I don't know. Maybe hyped up, but yeah, let's go to.
I'll eat crow one of these days, and I got a brain think it's literally the size of like a sticker, and they just go and it's like Cliff's thinking about a red apple.
Thinking of red apple cigarettes,
mad
man.
about the sticker on the side of his head. Like people touching it.
I think that means I want a cigarette because my mom was talking. We were playing cards last night, and she just said. Somebody played a 0 and said Zed, and she said, "Zed's dead, baby." And now I've been thinking about a red apple, so must be wanting one of those cigarettes.
Do not think about a brick wall.
Okay.
Do not.
Now I can't help but think about a brick wall.
Village of the Damned.
Yeah. Yeah. What was that? Superman played in that.
Was that Christopher Reeves?
Yeah. Wasn't there another one?
There was another earlier one that was in black and white, but I don't remember who did it.
Yeah.
Psychic bunch of creepy. I used to have nightmares when I was a kid, and it was before I hadn't seen Village of the Damned at this point, but I just dreamed when I was a kid that it would happen at various buildings. Sometimes it'd be my house I was living in, sometimes the church, sometimes the elementary school, where I would wake up, either I had taken a nap on the kitchen table, I'd wake up, or I was at a desk or something. When I woke up, everybody in the room had been replaced with like identical people that were kind of dressed in, I don't know, kind of like Uncle Grandpa from like Adult Swim or something, or Cartoon Network. He should be on Adult Swim though. Like all cartooning, even with like the big shoes and stuff. And I never did understand that as a kid. But even back then, I remember like looking back on that now. I'm like, man, that was totally just a dream about conforming. Because I went to that crazy church where I wasn't allowed to say anything or anything. So I'd always have these dreams. I'd wake up and there's a bunch of people that would like look at you and they'd try to get you to look into your eyes. And if you look too long, your clothes would start turning into theirs. I had that dream all the time. But it made me think of the Village of the Damned.
So wait a minute. Uncle Grandpa is a show.
Old show. It ain't on Cartoon Network anymore.
Does that mean that Grandpa is the... Okay.
You're reading into it. Go ahead. Keep going.
Yeah, Grandpa mated with his sister? Is that what
Came
we're
on
saying?
at the same time as Steven Universe. And you can do a deep dive on that show if you want to also.
Or Grandpa mated with his daughter? I don't know. What does that mean?
Grandpa, how would you do that? We're Tennesseans. We should be able to figure out this incest thing here.
We need an expert.
If it was your uncle, that means it's your dad's brother.
Okay.
So he's got to be your dad's brother and your grandpa
first.
So if he's your dad's brother, that means it was your dad's father. And so your sister's... So yeah, your dad's father, your grandpa, also banged his daughter. Right?
So the tree has no branches. It's just...
I guess. I don't know, man.
It's a stick.
So that's a show, I guess, then.
Well, it is an existing show. I think that's no longer coming on now, but there was a show called Uncle Grandpa. It was zany. He rode on the back of a tiger, whose name was Photorealistic Tiger, because he was photorealistic. And then he rode around with the creature from the Black Lagoon.
Okay, bring this shit up.
Who had a real deep voice.
I think I remember
And
saying
you talk like this, Uncle Grandpa. The TV would come
man.
on, and I would be doing my thing, and I just don't touch it. I just leave it.
No, I get
So-
you. I totally get it.
It's the same reason I've seen every episode of Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Oh yeah, he's talking about, and the chat's going on here. Honey Pie's talking about the book written in the 1800s that seemed to be prophetic about Donald Trump. Yeah, The Adventures of Baron Trump. There was, I think, a trilogy. One of them was called The Last President. Like I said, if we can quit getting sidetracked here for a minute,
I think
which
the
we
third one's
probably
called
won't.
That Son of a Bitch Biden. What?
we probably won't quit getting side effects, but we'll try to get into that. Yeah, thanks Alvin for that. The Adventures of Baron Trump, and
stay on topic.
yeah, I doubt we will, but let's go on back to the points at hand. I wanted to talk about, this is an article from Forbes on Nikola Tesla's earthquake machine, and it goes back to basically explain that he was working on a oscillation machine or a generator. Okay, did they?
I don't know if they did it correctly, but after you explain it, we can look and see if they did it justice.
Okay, well, it's a steam generator that he used a steam power to turn a dynamo, basically, and it had a giant metal wheel that oscillated, or I think it might have been a ball, but either way, it was a circular form that was oscillating to create current. And when he did this, he made a great big one, and it oscillated at a certain frequency that it actually started tearing his lab apart, and he said he had to smash it with a hammer and destroy it because it created an earthquake, and the police were called, and he allegedly had, I mean, I guess it's coming from the news, but he had his assistants run the police off, say it was an earthquake, no, nothing else. But he stopped working on that anymore because, he figured if he kept scaling that up, it was going to, rip the whole town down. So the earthquake machine was something that he did. There's a documented record of him having done it. Now, is that what actually caused it? Maybe there was just an earthquake at the time, but it was, it's a scientific fact that if you vibrate something at a certain frequency, the other things in the room that have that same harmonic structure will also vibrate. Like you can take two tuning forks, and if I had two tuning forks, I could hit one over here, and if Dustin held one that's tuned to the same frequency, if I hit one and Dustin was holding one that's tuned to the same frequency, they would both sound. So it's a true phenomenon that does happen. Another thing that Tesla worked on that could have been controlling the weather, or could have been said to have affected the weather, was he had the idea of an ionospheric heater, and that was part of his Wardenclyffe idea, was that basically the Earth and the water within it and the minerals and the spinning rotation of it basically act as a giant power source that is unlimited. And if he could have this tower that he plugged into the ground, and you've seen the pictures of it, and I'll show you some real quick, the Wardenclyffe Tower. Let me pull these up because...
Why don't we gather the northern lights?
Well, that was one of the things he was talking about, was creating his own northern lights.
I'll suck those things in and use them.
Well, that may be one of the things they're doing. But right there's the Wardenclyffe Tower. I'm sure y'all have seen that.
Another big pecker.
That's the facility that was famously built by Tesla, and he got the money loaned. Now,
It was just wooden, wasn't it?
no.
It was made of wood.
They made a wooden one he was trying wireless communication. Now, this was before. This one, I think, was in 1904. The one with the wireless communication, I think, was maybe 10 years earlier than that, something like that. They did build a wooden one to start with. This one they built a steel, and it was he got $150,000 from J.P. Morgan to do it. So he was saying basically you could have, this one was for wireless communication, but it was also about power. But he was selling on communication because he was telling J.P. Morgan, okay, you can have stock tips, you can sell people news, weather, and stuff like this, get it out over the airwaves all around the world, and it can be much faster, and we can, use build the power grid where we're going to run all the electrical equipment off of. So you can have fleets of planes that don't have to have batteries, don't have to have fuels. All they have to have is a connection to this power grid, and that's where you get into the story that J.P. Morgan, loaned him this money. He started on it. And he really needed $1 million. J.P. Morgan loaned him $150,000, and he went back to him for more money. And this is where the story says that he, said, well, this is going to give everybody free electricity. Well, where can they put the meter? Or where do we put the meter on it? And he said, no, there's not going to be anybody because it's free. And I think that's a little bit unrealistic because Tesla lived
just charged a monthly fee or something.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, because Tesla, he knew how business worked. So the idea that these guys are going to invest all this money in constructing all these power stations and not make a return on it, I think that's more naive than Tesla was, because he had to deal with these people to get his projects funded. So the idea that he just thought that he was going to go in there and be like free energy for everybody, I don't think so. And two, you would have to build the device that could receive it. Sure, there'd be some people who might be able to build it on their own and jump into the grid on their own, but it's probably going to be a very small number of people. It's probably really not going to affect your bottom line if some people do steal the power off of it. So there's still going to be a lot of money to be made. So I don't necessarily buy that one. The one that makes the most sense to me is that they already had everything invested in rubber, steel, copper, everything that would be needed. All the plans were already made to lay out these power lines all across the country. Morgan was making money. Chase was making money. The Astors were making money. They were all invested in all these different companies that were doing this. So at the time that this was also happening, you have Marconi had come up with wireless transmission. Radio wave, discovered radio waves, or Hertz had, and Marconi had figured out how to transmit data wirelessly. So this was already in place and working on the network that they had right now. So that would make sense why Morgan would say, okay, this one's showing me results. You're still building this tower and asking me for more money. I'm going to go with the guy who's doing what you're telling me you're going to be able to do in the future. He's already doing that, sending messages via radio waves. So Morgan did invest more in that. Personally, I don't think it was any, big scheme to deprive the people of free energy, because I don't think that was ever a realistic thing, that you wouldn't have to. I mean, somebody's going to have to pay for the upkeep of these power stations. There's going to have to be maintenance. There's going to have to be, maintenance on the house, the boxes at the house. It's not going to be something that works without any problems. But
I'm going to think this probably would have caused a lot of cancer.
Well, that's another thing too. They hadn't studied, and even today, the studies that we use for RF radiation and whether or not it hurts us are using old data, and we've immersed ourselves in it over the last decade, especially. Mm-hmm. 5G everywhere, 4G everywhere, Wi-Fi everywhere, radio waves everywhere.
I wonder if you can run electrical signals through radio waves if you got them going hard.
Well, yeah, that's what you can do. The idea is, the medium is so lossful or lossy, I guess they call it. It's the air. You lose your electricity over time quickly. So that's why Tesla wanted to build this tower that used the power of the ground and the earth to transmit the electricity up into the ionosphere and surround the earth with a blanket of constantly generating electricity that could be transmitted to those power stations and then transmitted wirelessly to whatever needed it all. And it'd be a network that basically is like the internet and the electric grid all combined, and the internet all runs on cables, but this would all be, using towers and plants. And he believed, Tesla did, that the Great Pyramid was an example of an ancient system of this because it had gold cap on the top of it, and
I think it's a big anthill.
It was sitting on an aquifer, and
it's a big anthill. There was a rabbit hole I fell down actually today, but go ahead.
No.
I think instead of primates, we may have came from like moles and ants and stuff, because we came out of the ground. Like, you can find like the Hopi and the Anasazi and stuff like that. They had their crap in the cliffs until the Navajo put them outside because the mountain would fall on during the earthquakes. And it's like Petra and all these, like, it just seems like all these civilizations used to bore into the ground, and then we stopped doing that. So we evolved from ants. The Egyptians were evolved ants, and white people are evolved moles because, mud holes. I don't know. It makes more sense than something. We didn't build them. A giant race of ants built them, like giant sugar cubes, and just set them one down one by one. And we rode the ants. We were ant riders.
I'll tell you right about that. I've seen Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, and that rings true.
What if we did ride ants? I mean, seriously, yeah, big ass dinosaur lizard shit. Well, why couldn't we have ants big enough to ride? And if you can control an ant, that ant could definitely pick up something big.
If you could make an invertebrate to become that large
Radiation.
in our atmosphere or atmospheric pressure, that's why spiders can't, because the spiders were like the size of like cats. They would be a more dominating species on this planet.
It'd be terrifying, yeah.
It'd be because, this is how their exoskeletons are and how our gravity on this planet works.
We need
It
less gravity or
restricts their-
more gravity to make them bigger.
You'd have to have a lot more oxygen and lesser gravity to a certain degree.
Dinosaur era. Yeah.
Dinosaur era, you had a lot larger insects because you had the density of the oxygen to let things grow a lot larger.
Yeah, you had super high carbon
was it
dioxide
like?
levels, which grew super high plants and made
Yeah.
super big animals.
Basically, what the lizard people's trying to terraform the Earth back into. So we can
Ooh,
have
yeah, that's what's happening. That's why they're trying to do the
Goes into
climate change.
Purple Dawn.
Well, why are they trying to? Oh, well, never mind. I know why. Same reason J.P. Morgan wanted to be in on everything is you're making money off of it, and with money you're
Plus
maintaining
cold-blooded.
power.
They need more heat. They want to turn the sun purple like it used to be when Saturn was our sun.
There you go. Well, using the electromagnetic radiation to modify the weather was an original concept of Nikola Tesla, and that's one of the reasons people were saying that the HARP was used to control the weather. And when he died in '43, like Alvin said, the FBI, John Trump seized. Well, he didn't work for the FBI. He was basically contracted by the FBI. They seized his scientific papers, and after World War II, weather modifications and space weapons became a mission of the military. And we've seen a declassified version of the weather warfare kind of stuff they were doing in Vietnam with Operation Popeye. Y'all familiar with that?
Well, I'm familiar with Operation Condom. Go ahead.
You told me about that in the show a couple times. He'll tell you about Operation Condom here in just a minute. But Operation Popeye, the two were probably used in conjunction.
Break that news to us.
Yeah, just don't break the condom. Because in the Operation Popeye, the U.S. Army, they noticed that there was a lot of activity, a lot of weapons were going down to the NVA through the Ho Chi Minh Trail, down from Laos and Cambodia. And it was a network of tunnels that were all underground and had, there were bases, and they were all interconnected under there. And you'd really have to know where you're going, otherwise you'd be in trouble when you went in there. So anyway, one of the ways that they ended up being able to slow travel of supplies on this trail, they tried bombing it, they tried attacking it straight forward, and they would basically just, once one branch was closed off, they would go to another way and skirt the area that was damaged. So anyway, they found more success with flooding it. Whenever the rains were up, the NVA had a harder time moving supplies through. Everything kept slower, so they said, what if we could make make the monsoon season last longer? So it started early, and they would seed the clouds with I can't remember if they used sodium, what was it? Iodine, sodium iodine maybe? Like silver iodide, I believe that's what it was, silver iodide. And they seeded clouds with it, and basically the way that works is when you have water vapor in the air, but there's no dirt or anything for the water vapor to stick to, it won't create raindrops and fall. So they would basically put these silver iodide particles in the air so that it would create rain from these clouds, and it would pull this moisture together and create rainfall. So they did this, and they found a increase in, it was the early 60s or early 70s they were doing this, and they found an increase in the amount of rainfall when they did it, but it was never conclusively proven that it was as a result of that. But they did keep doing it and spent millions of dollars doing it. So then that was declassified. So that was one way, at least that far back, they were able to do that. But they also were working on death rays. The Soviets and the Americans were working on, because Tesla, get this, Tesla went around the world. He did this twice. First time he did it was in like 1908. And he's this big anti-war guy. And so he goes around the world to all these different countries and says, hey, I know how to stop all wars. This is my seismic machine. You can put it on the coast. It'll make a giant tsunami that'll wipe out any navy that is trying to attack you. So basically, if everybody in the world can create giant tsunami waves at any time, nobody will dare go to war with one another.
Nukes.
Exactly. But he didn't have any takers with that. But in the late 30s, before World War II started, he had this kind of a similar idea with the death ray. He said this death ray, you build a big tower, and it could shoot anything within the 250 miles from the top of the tower, because or maybe 200, because the curvature of the Earth would block it from being any farther than that. But he said it could shoot, thousands of planes down easily, within the coast. So everybody has these death rays on their coasts. Nobody can fly over and bomb anybody. It'll be great. So he tried to shop this around everywhere, and he ended up giving his patents to, I think, the Soviets and the Americans and the British. And so they were all working on it during and after World War II. And some say that they did actually create some of this stuff. But
wasn't there another technology that kind of goes with like the earthquake machine? It was a project called like Silent Sound.
That sounds familiar.
It basically it's like using like high pitch oscillation to more or less like
beam voices into people's heads. And
well, no, not really that. It was used to completely incapacitate people by like blasting them, and it would rupture your eardrums, and it messes with the fluid in your head.
Didn't they supposedly test that in the first Gulf War? I
think so. The first Gulf War, and then I think the Afghanistan, the first
because they did stuff to the Iraqis that it was never actually told exactly what they did, but they had 150,000 Iraqi soldiers just like turn over their weapons and surrender without firing a shot. And these guys were not like, they'd just been at war with Iran for 10 years before that. So it's not like they were afraid of battle, but allegedly they used a lot of these psychological warfare and some of this silent sound technology to convince these people to just drop their weapons and give up. And that's exactly what they did. Let's see. Let's check in on the chats here. Yeah. Alvin says Tunguska was Tesla's. Now I've heard that too. That was basically coming from the ionospheric heating machine that he tried to make. Yep. And a lot of those. That was a blast, and I think it was 1908 over Russia or Siberia. It cleared out. It was it was like the equivalent of several nuclear bombs, and the commonly accepted explanation for it is that it was a meteor that exploded and went down and created huge shock waves and took it out. But yeah, a lot of people do say that was Tesla's work there. So some examples of geoengineering. I wanted to show you this real quick. This is from the infographics show, which is just in this case it's going over some publicly available information and making it easy to understand for people to watch on YouTube. Basically, we're just going to watch the first couple minutes of it. This is how Dubai controls its weather.
A town that can control its weather, but it can't control its sewage.
Scientists in Dubai can now literally modify their weather. This technology could change the world as we know it, but will controlling the weather be used for good or for evil? In July 2021,
It's never used for good. What are they talking about?
Scientists in Dubai used high-powered lasers and other advanced technology that were mounted to drones to make the rain fall from the sky.
I feel like I'm watching like a PSA from like the one world government or something.
Yeah, that's exactly what you're doing. And
so they have robots R. Kelly at you, basically.
Yep. And so we've come a long way from spraying silver iodide in the sky, but they still do.
They have fake clouds that are basically the robots rain on them now. Once upon a time, so they're not cloud seeding Abu Dhabi anymore or Dubai. Now they're having drones just go up and rain.
I think what they do is they superheat the air that the laser passes through, which causes the water to be directed into a cloud because they fire it in some kind of grid pattern. And but we're not going to have time to watch the whole 9 minutes. I watched it earlier, and it was something like that.
That's similar to like some of the HARP stuff too, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like the drones on the Spider-Man movie with Mysterio. You seen that one?
I don't remember.
Got Mysterio. You remember Mysterio? Spider-Man character's got the dome for a head.
No, I've not seen that.
Okay, it's not a good movie. But in this incantation of Mysterio, it's
Sam Raimi one. It was going to be Bruce Campbell.
Oh well, this is Jake Gyllenhaal doing this one. But he's got the dome for a head, all the magic and crap. And in this one, he's a fake magician, pretending to be kind of like an evil or another version of Doctor Strange. But spoiler alert, he's not real. He's using these remote control things to control a horde of drones that go in kind of like a cone, and then they project an image outward to make it look like he's fighting like these big swirling creatures and stuff. And whenever they're not doing anything, they go hide in the environment. And so anyway, yeah, drones.
Yeah, so that's one way they're doing it. But back here, we're going to go back to the geoengineeringwatch.org article. It says common sense. We're talking about the history of weather modification in regard to climate change and people trying to control the amount of the temperature rise. And that's where we get into a lot of this stuff, because we get into ideas. We've seen people as prominent as Bill Gates promote the idea of spraying particles over the sun or into the atmosphere to block out some of the sun and stop some of the sun's rays from getting through. Well, there's all kinds of ways that people are doing this. They're using primitive cloud seeding methods in like Colorado. I think we've talked about this on the show before. In Colorado, where they're basically stealing a lot of the water that normally goes to the West Coast, because they go ahead and cloud seed when the moist air comes over the Rockies and make the snow fall there where it normally wouldn't. So instead of being carried out to the coast, down the Rockies and back out to the coast, they go ahead and actually steal the moisture out of the air by cloud seeding that moist air before and making it fall as snow. But that's common knowledge. They run these snow machines.
See why they would need to do that.
Well, they just run these snow machines that they steal the moisture out of the air. I don't know if you want to say they steal it, but without them doing that, it would be going to California. And then California uses all the water for almonds, and they don't have enough to drink. So,
the whole state catches on fire.
Yeah, unfortunately, that flood out there right now is more water than they need. Man, it was crazy. Did you guys see any videos of that?
A little of it, but not really.
Man, it was awful. It looked like areas as wide as Watauga Lake, just water crashing through things, just knocking houses down and everything.
It's supposed to be under the ocean.
Yeah.
I don't know. I get this theory that we artificially created California and a couple other places. Because,
they thought it was an island.
Well, there's pictures of it, like old map pictures, where there is much more water going up through there. Mm-hmm. So I think it probably is more recent that water opened up.
Yeah, it probably went up the Baja Peninsula, Death Valley area.
You can go through Death Valley, and there's a spot, I can't remember the name of it, but it's clearly a dry ocean floor. It's all cracked, and the weird octagon patterns all over it. You can take your fist and punch it into the ground, and there's big piles of salt water underneath it, within 4 inches. So it's literally the ocean floor below that. And the thing that's keeping it away is if California would just, sink 4 feet, all the water would come back. Yeah. I don't know if it's that minimal. It's probably 100.
Right.
But something weird happened.
In geological terms, it's 4 inches.
In geological terms, it's 4 inches.
I bet the audio didn't play on that video we just showed, but I think we had the captions on, didn't we?
Well, I hope we've been talking...
No, we've not been mute, but I think the audio, maybe they were picking it up from our mics, but I think the chit-chat with the...
If so, we've got some damn good
caption was on. Well, I know they can hear us, but I'm not sure about that video we just played. But I do want to show you this video of these fellers, and I just love this old guy. Look at him; he looks like Steven Spielberg or George Lucas. Looks like George Lucas.
That's sad. That's my first thing. That's my go-to. Yeah, look at that haircut.
Oh, wait a minute. Let me adjust this volume first.
I've never seen a more slappable haircut.
Poor Alex.
Welcome to TVE Course Tech Talk, and please remember to subscribe and comment. Robert and I took a road trip to Milford, Texas a few weeks ago to take 4K video of the Visiv Technologies Wardenclyffe Tower Resurrection. For those of you who didn't know about the Wardenclyffe Tower, it was a device designed
He goes on to tell about Wardenclyffe Tower like we just talked about, so we're going to skip all that. But I want to show you what these fellers are doing with it. Visiv Technologies. The patents for, like I said, the patents were released in 2016 and 2018, and some big technology company called Visick is building this Wardenclyffe Tower. They call it the Wardenclyffe Tower Revolution, I believe. And they were trying to create xenic surface waves, which they're basically trying to reverse the technology that Tesla was working on, rather than having the current be pulled from the earth and using the water basically to help ground it and transmit it, and then transmitting the power through the ionosphere. These guys, it seems, are trying to capture power created in the ionosphere and transmit using a xenic surface wave that travels over the surface of the earth. The earth is actually, has an iron core and has a lot of water in it. It's apparently a very good.
Spinning about 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, very good conductor.
That's what the news said. The core of the Earth, like 2 weeks ago,
Yep.
stopped spinning and it's going to change directions or
Yep.
something.
The
How did they know that? I'm
Uh,
sorry. Have we like just same way I was going to say they've never cut into the brain to check for chemical imbalances? How do they know what the Earth's middle is?
I don't guess they know for sure because they've never been in there, but they're using basically measuring techniques that they have available to them and to make the best guess that they have. So, I mean,
We don't know shit, people.
no, I don't think they do.
We don't know dick.
Just like they, still don't know a lot about the pyramids, and a lot of people still say that they were wireless power devices. They were some kind of, they did never, to my knowledge, never found a mummy in them.
No, I don't know why they taught us that in school, but they taught us that from day one. Oh,
That it
there's
did
pharaohs
too.
in every one of them.
Yeah.
There's also not decorations
work.
inside of them. There's some symbols and stuff, but there's not decoration like the tombs that we do see, like in the Valley of the Kings. There's all kinds of fancy decorations and ornaments and stuff. So you don't see that in the Great Pyramid. There are some characters, and I think they attributed it to Khufu because they saw there was a block that had a quarry mark that was the same or similar to a quarry mark that was used during something that Khufu built, that they knew Khufu had built. So they said, oh, well, he must have built this too. And as far as I know, that's the main way that they attribute that to him.
Isn't there something in one of the pyramids? There is like a sarcophagus basically in it, but it's like in like a chamber that can have water basically to generate. Basically, they said it was like an eternal life thing.
I don't know. Let me see in the pyramid.
Something related to Thoth.
Froth? Froth?
Yeah, they said a biosand filter for water softening is what this says. But that's the top result that I got when I just Googled it. But yeah, they do say it's the remains of the pharaoh's sarcophagus. So, but they never found a mummy in it, and there's even among the establishment sites and things, there's still contention over what it actually is. Was it actually a tomb? Was it something else?
Do you think they just 3D printed all that crap using the sand?
Yeah, I'd say that's exactly what they did.
I mean, you really think about that. Just 3D print a block using the sand that's on the ground, glue it together, and stick it straight down.
Hey,
Occam's razor, folks. Sometimes I make things sound really stupid, but sometimes I'm right.
sometimes you are. So let's look at this real quick. This video from BizIv.
That just kind of goes around and
Yeah, let's see, why not?
kind of like in the old RTS games when you built something and you just
Yeah, like a fabricator off of Gears of War or something. All this stuff. How we hauled 1,200 tons? Maybe they didn't. Maybe they just shaped the ground right there. Or maybe they rode around on giant ants.
Hey, do you guys know about Coral Castle and Ed's lead scaling? If you do, in the chat, let us know if you'd like to talk about that. Coral Castle, it'd be a cool thing to talk about. Maybe not a whole show on it, but something to do on that. But watch this show because those guys down there at the TV Tech TVE course, they did an interesting video. They found power out in the middle of a field. They found a strong RF signal about what you would find from a Wi-Fi. They were about a half a mile away from this thing. They tried to go visit it, and they filmed it from a distance, and they had somebody come out and tell them they couldn't film there. So they left and then filmed it from somewhere else, and then they were doing some experiments with RF meters, and they were going around, and they were finding real strong frequency out in the middle of this field, and they're like, why would this particular frequency be right here? We're far away from anything. There's no high tension lines around. There's no reason there should be a signal here like this, but here it is. So they found something pretty interesting. They talk a little bit about BizIv Technologies, and we were going to watch a video from BizIv Technologies when this is from 4 years ago, shortly after the second batch of Tesla documents were released. They came out with this. They said their technologies are patent pending.
This odd-looking tower just off I-35 East gets a lot of long looks from the traffic passing by. Madonna McLeod and her family live practically in its shadow. When did you first notice that thing going up behind you?
About a year and a half ago. Well, we did think, oh gosh, are we going to be the glowing people? But anyway, I don't know. We'll just have to see.
Okay, 2018.
Just down the road in Milford, the tower became the talk of the town as people tried to figure out its purpose.
We aren't real sure. We're thinking we're going to walk around with tinfoil on
I'm
our
sure say
head.
MILF.
Fortunately, there's no need for
Milford.
that.
Oh, Milford.
Believe it or
It
not,
said
the theory
Milford.
behind this
That's
tower
great.
Goes back more than 100 years to a scientist named Nikola Tesla. Yes, that Tesla. The man who gave us AC electric motors, which eventually turned into electric cars, had a theory about sending electricity through the air. Now the technology
Did the
exists
dude
to
say he
make
gave
that
us
possible.
DC
But
electric
first,
motors?
Visiv Technologies has other
They said
experiments to do.
now Tesla did, not
We're focusing early on communication.
not Nikola
signaling,
Tesla.
Things like regional GPS, radio navigation, and
That guy looks like he works for every electric department in the
And
world.
possibly send electricity through the air, doing away with
Doesn't he?
high-tension electrical wires and towers. like
Yeah,
these.
you're not wrong.
Visiv says its experiments will in no way harm its neighbors.
we have no desire to disrupt their lives in any way. We want to improve their lives and improve the world around us.
And that's good news.
So I couldn't. Oh yeah, that's good news. They want to improve our lives. So I couldn't pull it up on the computer for some reason, but I pulled their LinkedIn for Visiv Technology, and I'll just read it to you because I had a hard time getting it to let me log in on the computer. But Visiv Technologies is the culmination of over 4 decades of research in the field of electromagnetic surface waves. We have assembled an experienced team from academia, industry, and government to take this revolutionary science from laboratory to industry. These men and women have joined together under one calling to power the planet and bring light to the world. So basically, they say they want to commercialize the Xenic surface wave and all its various applications, and they filed patents. The guys that I showed you a bit of their video a minute ago, TVE course, I believe it is. I'll give you that. I should have put this in the chat, but I'll put that in the chat because you may want to watch it because these guys are, like radio signal nerds and tech, kind of.
That tower's going to make their cheer routine more electric, I'd say.
I'd say you're right about that. But those guys, they did a really good video on it.
You know what I'm talking about, Electric Six? Yeah.
And they actually review the patents and go over everything that Visiv filed for it. So it's definitely pretty cool. They did a good job on the video. Now I can't find the video, so
Electric.
I'll have to share that later. Oh, here we go. TVE course. Yeah, I'll share that real quick with the. Go ahead, Tim.
That's because the Electric Six was who I was trying to say. I have to actually say the word or my brain will explode. Yeah.
It's like I have to make the noise or I'll die.
They came out of the same scene as Jack Black and all them. Is why they were so, I guess, so weird. We recorded like a couple of songs at the same studio that guy did, and I asked the dude Kevin that did the engineering up there. I was like, "Hey man, you ever heard of Electric Six?" And he just turns around real slow and he goes, "Mr. Valentine is the weirdest man I've ever met in my life." And he turns around and goes, I was like, "Okay, I'm not disappointed."
Okay, I'm adding this to because if you're interested in this and you like the old internet with just nerds sitting around talking about stuff and sharing information on rooms that they never intended for anybody else to find. It's just it was their space, and these guys are kind of those old school internet guys, and they did a very interesting deep dive into some of this stuff and talking about, like I said, they review all the patents and show what some of the implications are of this technologically. It'd take about 15 minutes to go through it all. So if you're interested in it, you should check them out. Let's get to this real quick. We've got how to grassify, how to green the world's desert and reverse climate change. And
Spoiler alert, you don't.
Well, basically he's going into where we can move the rainwater away from places where it already is. And this is a TED Talk he's done. I'm actually not going to show it because I don't know exactly where it is, but you can
Johnson, you're fired.
You can find lots of stuff where they're talking about this, and basically, to me, I hear we're going to disrupt the natural weather patterns that people have moved and migrated to find that best suits them, and now we're going to decide we know what's best for the earth, and we're going to disrupt all that because there's some places that don't get water, so we need to place more places like Dubai to be able to pop up and steal water from the air. I don't know if I want to say steal, but I don't know. It seems a little grandiose to think that you're actually going to improve everything in such a complex system as the Earth's weather and climate.
We're so dependent on our technology. Like, I don't know if anybody's ever, like, I love going out west, but I don't know if I could ever really live out there because there's just this haunting knowledge that when you're in the middle of like Death Valley or like Arizona, one of these places, that you could die really easily, and that's not really around here. You don't really have that, because if you get lost in the woods around here, you could find a creek to find water. God willing, you could eat some berries that weren't poisonous or something like that. But man, out in the middle, there's just nothing. There's just nothing. And as soon as all of that man-made water transporting, like if something happened to disrupt the flow of all those big trucks of water that are making deliveries to all these people's water tanks and stuff, because it turns out there's some places, don't matter how far down you dig, there's no fucking water below you. Your civilization immediately squishes back down to where rain just exists on its own at that point, because man, that ended. Dubai would be dead in like a month. You couldn't live out there.
Oh, yeah.
It's salt water.
Yeah.
Everybody in Arizona and Texas, they'd be either going to the coast or they'd be going to some place where it rains just a little bit more, because there's just some places you can't live. Of course, they moved out to the desert during the Texas Wild West days, so maybe I'm full of shit on that, but still. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to look at a lot of these western towns, like Vegas especially, to figure out without man-made technology, these places just do not exist.
Yeah, well, I mean, just air conditioning. Think about how hot how deadly for old people, especially the deep south and the southwest would be.
Well, Texas wasn't ready for that freeze last year or 2 years ago, whatever, and they did have people die because of the extreme cold.
Yeah, that's true too. And that's actually a whole other thing because
That wasn't even really.
Yeah, they were ready, but they were forced by the federal government.
Because the electrical system turned down and shut down.
Yeah, well, they knew that they did not have the power that they needed from the wind system. They have a deal. Texas made the deal. They should have made the deal, but they have a deal with the federal government that they're going to use so much wind power and all this stuff and so much green power. But Texas knew that they were going to need more power, that their wind wasn't going to be able to keep up, so they requested the federal government, hey, we need to crank up these other power plants because we're going to have this cold spell and we need to be able to have the energy to deal with it. And the federal government told them, no, you're going to have to use the power that you got right now. The EPA governor should have overruled him, I think, and gone ahead and done it anyway, but he didn't. He followed the federal recommendation, and they wouldn't have had enough power anyway, but then they had some of those things freeze, and then they had more trouble from that. So it was a big, complicated mess, and everybody started blaming each other. But for the best of my ability to figure it out, that appears to be what have happened. Faults were made on both sides, and it ended up being a huge clusterfuck where Texas should have been ready to supply power at least. I don't know that they would have been ready for ice and all that stuff, but they should have at least been able to supply the power. But that's neither here nor there. The whole idea is, back to your point, Tim, we're so dependent on these things, and it seems like we're building layer upon layer upon layer of them. And again, not that I think, Tesla was a visionary in this. It's really freed a lot of people. It's made things a lot better, and then, it could be used to make things a whole lot worse. So it all just depends on who's in charge of the technology and who lets, I guess you say, how much we let it affect us, and who lets it affect us how much, who becomes how dependent on it. So with that in mind, I want to go.
What happens if the sun gets pissed off at us and crop dust us with some solar radiation and kills our grids?
Yeah.
What if the ancient sun worshippers had solar power?
Maybe they did.
Yeah. I thought of that. That makes kind of sense, doesn't
Yeah.
it? Like maybe the reason they worship the sun's because they had big old Tesla panels out there.
Yeah.
Powering my pyramids.
Maybe they figured out some way to use plants and use chlorophyll to create electricity from the roots of plants, collect the sunlight, and use that energy. Who knows? It might have been
a plant on your flag.
it just might be a total
root gatherers, the root worshippers.
It might be. Well, you did have that. I mean, you had the Druid culture and the pagan cultures, and you had the sun worship too. But I mean,
deep rooted into a lot of history.
The idea that the kind of technology we have today is the only kind that could exist is kind of one of our. It's pretty. I mean, I guess you call it hubris. Because we think we're this ultimate form of man, and well, they couldn't have figured out how to do this and that because they didn't have the form of electricity that we do today back then. So maybe they had a whole other, some kind of organic energy of some sort. Who knows?
Stuff that just didn't, last 10,000 years.
Yeah.
Like you can't find the traces of it 10,000. Like didn't what we say? It's like, oh, in 10,000 years. You would know nothing of our current civilization because everything would crumble away and rust. And
well, it's like there's one path where we take electricity, and like if we start making electricity the way we have it now and it's working, then we're going to build on that. But let's say there's another time, another civilization could have had a different result with something else that worked for them. They could have used who knows what. I have no idea. Like I said, something to do with the trees. And create energy that way, and maybe that could be how they ran their society, and it was a totally different function of nature that we didn't recognize because we were so focused on electricity and combustion engines and the kind of things that we use. Who knows? This is just all talking out of my ass here, but these guys here are trying to basically stop the sun, stop the earth from doing what it normally does, and doing it in the name of saying that what human beings do is causing the earth to do this.
When a lot of the stuff that's causing a lot of this water issue around the world, it's because I don't know, a big, huge organization goes and steals all the water from everywhere.
Yeah, dude, I was watching. Okay, get this.
Nestle.
Yeah. Well, think about this. Have you seen Quantum of Solace? The second Bond film with Daniel Craig in it. Mm-hmm. Okay, it basically you had the organization Solace introduced in Casino Royale, and you go on to find out what their game is in Quantum of Solace, and spoiler alert on this 15-plus-year-old movie, but it all comes down to Bond, and this is kind of why it didn't even seem that believable to me. Bond takes the lead and goes rogue to stop a company from buying up. They're basically doing a coup in a South American country in exchange for the water rights. So these people are like, hey, General, if you want to be the leader of this country again, you pay us money. We go in and we bribe all the right people. We make you the leader. In return, we are going to sell you all your water and for in perpetuity, basically. And they would go in and dam up the rivers and take all the water. And then James Bond is like, oh no, I can't let this happen, and kills everybody. And like, I'm not thinking, well, this is exactly what Nestle's doing in real life. I don't know that it was
governments do to their own country. China did that to half their country. The U.S. did it to Butler.
Yeah, it goes on all over the place. So it's kind of unbelievable to me that Bond would just be like, oh well, I'm just going to kill everybody and stop them from doing this, because it's like the worldwide practice of it. And like you said, Nestle famously going around and buying up water with the land, with the aquifers on it, and draining it.
Aquifers screwing up water shelves throughout the world. I mean, complete hell, like making some places legitimately collapse because you took the water out of the aquifers and it's just hollow and things start collapsing in on themselves.
So there's lots of ways that human beings are affecting the planet, but you don't hear a lot about that on, from Greta Thunberg or CNN or whatever. You don't hear a lot about all the stuff that's in the coal the Chinese are burning, or all the stuff, the plastic. You do hear some about it on social media about the plastic that gets thrown in the ocean.
It's just plastic. I got to think about that today too.
Yeah, just cells growing around nodes of plastic.
Yeah, like, did you know that one of the best, I guess, examples of how cancers work, they find in cat brains. Turns out cats almost are immune to cancer because their bodies have some kind of like a thing they send up in their like encapsulates it off. Like dogs don't have that. Like if a dog gets brain cancer, it just eats it up and it dies. But a cat, it'll actually isolate inside of its head with like some kind of like a callus.
Cancer. I was about to say, cats can get cancer.
Well, like in the brain, it calcifies it off into the side and makes it like a marble, and it has to get several before it starts seeing like problems, like with pressure and stuff. And the body does that to a lot of stuff. Like they see that with like blood clots, with like here lately, like where it looks like more like noodles and stuff, like it's trying to like wrap up a foreign organism, and get it out. I don't know if you've ever taken a big old riff off of one of your pipes or something and got a particulate down inside of your lung, but that thing comes up in a ball of snot the next day.
Yeah.
And your body has processes, and I'm just wondering if cancer is just such a hard one, it doesn't know how to deal with it. Dumbass musician talking here, not a doctor.
Well, guys, I put an article into because it's got kind of.
Cliff's sitting here looking at Tool album covers.
I put this article in the in the notes here because this goes into the golden ratio and the vibration of the earth and kind of the things that Tesla found with that, and some of the stuff he was into that caused him to think that maybe it was related to the Great Pyramid. So it's a little more than we can get into tonight.
Goes in Hermetic principles too, because he thinks the as above, so below applies to the golden ratio, to the universe applies to the human, and so on.
Yeah, and for y'all that hadn't seen it, the golden ratio is like it's 1 to 1.6 or something like that, and it's like basically what your eye finds beautiful. If it's in the proportion of that, you're going to enjoy the look of it. It's going to be visually pleasing. If not, something's going to look off about it.
There's a certain number called, I think it's phi or phi. I'm not really good with those things. Wanting to say that's it right there. It's 1.618 phi or phi, how you pronounce it.
Yeah.
It's the
golden
equation
mean
that causes that fractal looking with a spiral.
And apparently DNA helix is a dodecahedron based on that phi. Yeah, the golden mean. And the DNA is based on that. One of the other things that I put in there is about Trump's jumps through time. This is written by John Carroll on quitefrankly.tv's blog, which has got a lot of interesting stuff on there. We've done a couple articles. We did one on Gamergate and one on emojis and how the emojis may be modern iterations of the 72 demons in the Goetia, and the modern calling cards for these demons that you put when you play, that you draw when you summon them. But this basically goes on to
basically the Facebook post. It's like, post your last 4 used emojis. So you're drawing like a sigil.
Yeah, that's the idea. Behind the article of it's one of the older ones. It was I think it called it Crouching Tiger Hidden Emoji. I can't remember, Crouching Demon Hidden Emoji or something like that. But anyway, it was on the quitefrankly.tv blog too. So check out some of their other stuff. But this basically goes into after Tesla's death, they seized his stuff, and John Trump came in to help him review everything, and he said there was nothing of any real substance. And this says. This chat says
still there. It was a kid from Netherlands trying to clean that thing up, but I guess he didn't do it yet.
What is it?
The big plastic
the
island.
Great Pacific plastic patch is bigger than Texas.
Yeah.
I thought there was a Netherlands kid that was working on cleaning that up.
Yeah, I've seen a story about that.
Probably can't, and as long as there's more plastic going towards it on that current, that's not going to stop.
Yeah, I'd say he's got his work cut out for him.
Could just go live on it. Gathered. Is it like solid? Or
create a new
Like
species.
plastic quicksand,
I'd say parts of it are solid, but parts of it probably are like quicksand too.
Maybe Jesus was just walking on pollution. I'm sorry. That's just the first thing.
Let's go back into this Chandler post real quick here. John Trump claimed that there was nothing of any real substance in Tesla's notes, but this, of course, was a lie. He knew if the National Defense Research Committee realized what the notes contained, it could mean the end of the world, because in them were blueprints for the theoretical time machine. John Trump thought that Tesla's time machine was plausible, if not possible, to create using the technology existing during his time. John Trump died in 1985, but not before leaving Tesla's notes and their implications to the protection of his beloved nephew, Donald Trump. Around this same period, Donald Trump was known to use pseudonyms such as John Miller and John Barron in partial homage to his uncle. However, and his name is Donald John Trump. However, there is another pseudonym that Donald Trump was not so well known for using, John Teeter. This is from the 4chan post, guys. Trump, as John Teeter, traveled to the future under the assumed identity of a soldier, where he discovered that America and the entire world had become a nuclear dystopia caused by radical Islamic terror.
Oh, it's 2016. I was wondering.
Yeah.
Keep going. This is
John
Q era.
John Teeter posted to several forums in 2000 and 2001 speaking of events that happened in the timeline he had witnessed. He spoke of terrible events that would occur in the early 2000s to 2012. He could not name the radical Islamic terror at the time, or the timeline may become avoidable. He had extremely cautious. He had to be extremely cautious and analyze the near infinite temporal variables and possibilities before making his move. Trump traveled time, amassing a fortune and making subtle changes which helped delay the future he saw as long as he could. But now the future is coming. Trump knew the only way he could have enough influence to prevent this future totally would be become the president of the United States. And it goes on to say, if you've noticed, Trump has a bizarre ability to predict the future. It's because that's exactly what he's doing. He's been there. And then he goes on to John Carroll, the Quite Frankly writer, goes on to document a lot of the stuff about Trump and his uncle, that we won't go into all this stuff, but he talks about Trump was my uncle, was one of the brilliant people at MIT for 35 years, a great scientist and engineer, and more than anything else, it was a great guy. And he says he used to talk about nuclear with his uncle, and notably the problems with the spread of nuclear weapons around the world. And he goes on to explain that the books that we were talking about, let's see, here we go. Baron Trump's Marvelous Underground Journey. And it is, it's about a guy who is led by the Master of Masters. His name is Baron Trump, and he lives in Castle Trump, and it's on Fifth Avenue in New York. And there are, I forget what year it takes place in, but it's by Ingersoll Lockwood. This is the author of this book. And
Lockwood.
Lockwood.
That's the name of the guy of Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs.
Well, and this guy, there's like a mob of anarchists and socialists attacking his Trump Castle at Fifth Avenue in New York, and in the book, the Don becomes the president, and later in the book, he goes on to appoint a man named Pence to his cabinet.
That's an etching, by the way.
And this, people have said, this actually looks like Baron Trump.
Looks like an etching with a dog. I don't know if it looks like Baron Trump to me. It looks Baron.
Let's pull up Baron Trump and pull him next to him.
Baron Trump ever been caught wearing Mason garb?
Weird. It does look like Baron Trump in Masonic regalia. Let's look at these pictures side by side.
With the dog too.
Little Baron looks about like his dad when he was younger, doesn't he? Because they have that young picture of Trump over there to the side. Of course, young Trump kind of looked like a little bit of a Black Widow. What's her name?
Scarlett Johansson.
Yeah, young Trump looks a little bit like a Scarlett Johansson type.
Let's look at them side by side here. Well, I'm trying to look at them side by side. Well, just
You
A,
have to
B.
minimize one into a small.
Oh, yeah, that's what I need to
I don't know. I'm going to say 4chan might be have their optics off a little bit on this one. Because that looks like a human kid, and that looks like a scribbledy goop. Lockwood was the name of the guy from Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, and he also was obsessed with Nikola Tesla in that movie, by the way. So maybe they made a connection there on purpose.
So here's Baron Trump in the book, The Marvelous Underground Adventures of Baron Trump, and here's Donald Trump's son, Baron, from a few years ago.
That looks like Eastern European garb, doesn't it? Almost like Western Russian. Like, you ever seen Western Russian gear?
Yeah.
That's what that looks like. It's like white people and Asians mixed together. It's a really strange looking style.
It is.
Russians are Asians.
Yeah, have you seen that side that side of Russia that touches Asia, where all that stuff starts mixing together and all their buildings look Chinese, but all the people look like Russians wearing that stuff. It's a really strange looking.
Mm-hmm.
Looks like the 80s all over again. White guys wearing Asian gear.
It's like
nunchucks hanging from everybody's closet doorknob.
And here's the Fifth Avenue Hotel, was the first to feel the fury of the mob, where they're after the president.
Ingersoll's a weird name.
Yeah, it is.
It's one of those old.
Think of Ingersoll Rand.
Makes me think of Ingerberg Humperdinck, or is that Engelberg? Engelberg Humperdinck. singer, in case you don't know.
Oh, this says here, this is a person who claims to be a time traveler. And this is from 2016. He says, "No, I'm not Pence or a Pence. If you haven't figured out who I am, I'll give you a hint. That me you see in public is currently less than 25 years old. I won't confirm it if you get it right." And these anons all think it's Barron Trump. So, and then there's also the theory that Steve Bannon is Barron Trump from the future. But Steve Bannon is already, Barron Trump is already much taller than Steve Bannon. But there's the wrap up of it there from quitefrankly.tv. Very cool post. And then they go on to keep going. It gets deeper and deeper, this rabbit hole here, and gets into CERN and Tesla technology and the Kekiverse. And it's kind of crazy all these coincidences that happen there with the guys, saying Kek, and that was how you said LOL in Japanese, and then it turned out they found out there was a frog god named Kek who lived back in ancient Egypt, and that they were basically creating all the rituals of this frog god in their shit posting on 4chan. They were accidentally recreating the rituals of this frog god.
The idea was to never stop laughing no matter what. That's where the whole Kek culture came from, because no matter what they do, don't stop laughing at them was the whole point.
Sounds like the Metalocalypse episode.
Where they... Well, that's what 4chan is. So they're killing humor. So no matter what they do, the only thing they can't do is the only thing they can't do is make you not laugh at them, and that's the most insulting thing you can do. So that was the whole point of the whole Kekiverse thing, was no matter what, just keep laughing at them and let them burn their own shit down.
Yeah. Well, so that's a little bit of an overrun. If you really want to watch it, there's all kinds of stuff out there. But the quitefrankly.tv links that I put in the description of the show, they'll actually help you out a lot if you want to know where something else to go, because they link some cool stuff. John Carroll's a pretty good writer, and he makes it flow and makes it very interesting. So go check those out. I'm going to get into Wilbur Dam tonight because
Spill finally got in.
Hey, what's up, Spill? I was getting a little worried about you. All right? Slightly cray-cray. Let's see here.
Dang, I pretty much missed it, huh?
Yeah, we missed a lot here.
Back up to the Great Pacific Plastic.
Yeah, Alvin's talking about the Great Pacific Plastic Patch being bigger than Texas.
Like it's an ant.
And then he said, says, think about it. With emojis, we write on walls and worship cats just like the ancient Egyptians. Yeah. And, that could have just been a hard copy. They may have had wireless power and the ability to, who knows, like you said, 3D print the stone. Maybe they just rewrote it in the stone, and maybe it was a screen technology, that got stuck in place. Who knows? They've recently found a new shaft in the pyramid, and they've shown pictures of it. But from what I read, it's like, this was actually a recreation of our scans that we did. So I'm having a hard time finding out if this picture that they're showing of this new tunnel that they found in the pyramid is actually, let's see, new pyramid tunnel, is actually a picture, or if it's just a artist rendition or a computer model.
Pyramid.
So you saw this the other day. I imagine y'all saw the new discovery of the pyramid tunnel, and so it may give people more insight into what this thing actually was. Was it a generator of some sort? So let's look at this real quick.
Gigantic chevrons above the main entrance. For the first time, a look inside, a precise analysis.
So that actually looks like a picture, right? A video
of the North Face corridor.
This discovery, in my opinion, is the most important discovery on the 21st century.
But they go on to say basically that, why we never dug in this before, and until we scanned it, and it wouldn't be safe to dig in it. So it's like, did they actually go in it? I don't know. I'm not sure.
I bet they.
It looked like they stuck a worm camera in there or something.
Like, I know it's probably not, a lot of people know this, but like it's been said a lot of times by the Egyptologists you can find online talking. It's like the true history of ancient Egypt will never be discovered until a whole lot of people of a certain generation die off, because they don't like the idea of them suddenly having to admit their entire career was a sham.
Well, Edgar Casey's son said that he met with Zahi Hawass, and that he thanked him because he knew he couldn't let everybody know what was under the pyramids. That's what Edgar Casey's son said.
Well, even I mean, maybe
that's a different perspective. But what I'm saying is, I think you're right. No matter which perspective you take, whoever knows what really happened out there is controlling that information.
It's the same generation that said they buried kings under their pyramids, and now it's the same. You got to wait for those whole group of people to die off before they can actually start proposing new stuff.
Yeah, but they're training their replacements, and they're probably indoctrinating them into the ideas that help them keep it silent. Yeah, let's see here.
Can't stop the internet.
No, that's right. Spill says she was stuck on a Whitney Webb video. Yeah, she's good. I saw her on Sam Tripoli. I listened to her on. Yeah.
Hate her already. Illuminati.
Well, she lays out the whole Epstein network with like, she actually pours over the, and this lady, she's just like a regular mom, but she got into doing alternative.
Regular mom if she was hooked up with the Illuminati. And
yeah, well, maybe she's an Illuminati.
Hey, Sam Tripoli, mom. Me and you are going to rumble one of these days, big boy. Call me.
Whoa! Doing some MMA hype.
Some kind of thing between me and Sam Tripoli.
Bring it on, Johnny Woodward, and what's his other buddy's name?
Johnny Woodward. I can't remember.
Xavier Guerrero. No, I like those guys. I think they're pretty good dudes. But Whitney Webb, basically, she tears apart the Epstein case with all the legal documents. All everything she gets is part of his cases and part of the history of the people involved in it. It's all public knowledge. She's just spent a tremendous amount of time putting it all together and laying out the heart of the conspiracy and how it actually works. And yeah, she definitely does a good job of it. Let's see here. Yeah, pretty good about the flood. So much rain. I was wondering, we were worried about you there, Spill.
Sam would not fight me for charity. Sam would only do it for money. He needs money. He's not on the Joe Rogan level. He's like 900 podcasts.
Yeah, I'd say he's doing all right.
I'd say he's doing about as all right as me and you are, but he's in entertainment. So
yeah, I'd say he's doing. I mean, he's living in L.A., so he can't be doing too bad to be able to live in L.A.
Yeah, he can too, because his rent's probably $1 million a year.
Yeah,
for a 2-bedroom apartment.
But yeah, that's Whitney Webb was a good one on both of the shows that I saw.
What do you watch them? The Tinfoil Hat one?
Sometimes. I haven't listened to it in a long time, but I did hear all.
I used to listen to Tinfoil Hat quite a bit, but it's a little. I'm going to say this, and this is going to be ironic. I almost can't listen to it because it's like 3 of me on the same podcast. It's too much. You know what I'm saying? Like, at times I know it to be like, But with them, it's real quick. So it makes my brain hurt sometimes. I like the Broken Simulation a little bit better than Tinfoil Hat, honestly.
I've not listened to that one.
I don't even know if they do it anymore, but it was a little bit more free form.
Yeah, he plugs it on Tinfoil Hat.
Or Butler.
That's little Wilbur.
Little Wilbur, yeah.
But I did want to show you. This is from February 24th of 2015. The video I just happened to record when I was going through Siam Road when we had some snow on the road, and I had a 4-wheel drive Subaru back then, so I just let it go, let it rip going through there, and it was a lot of fun. But I just wanted to show you some of these spring. I mean, it's technically not spring yet, but late winter snows are some of the best we get around here. But this is on the way out to Wilbur Dam, where I'm about to show you about right now. And you can't really tell how steep this is, but it's a pretty steep hill, and you gotta be careful. Even with 4-wheel drive,
Which direction are you coming from?
I'm coming from. This is from behind the East Side School, across the bridge there, across from the jail, and then coming.
You're coming. Okay, you're not coming from the creek side.
No.
My brain. It's nice dyslexia likes to take
that house. No, wait a minute. I am. I'm going to town. That house is gone now.
I recognize that house. Yeah.
That house is gone now. So I was going the opposite way. But just a little bit of I'm coming from Wilbur Dam there, or Little Wilbur as they call it. But Wilbur Dam, it was built in 1909. And like I said, the dynamo, Tesla said he came up with it in 1880. But it was a fairly new invention at the time. And
I'm not going to make the meme, but you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Somebody needs to make a picture of Tesla being like, behold my new invention, and have dynamo, like 6 dynamos from Running Man all going, launching electricity into the.
You need to be the one to do it.
My
singing opera.
skills are pretty awful.
Dynamo was one. He was Dynamo was the lamest chaser, man. I mean, he was a good opera singer, but how many kills could Dynamo have gotten? I mean, he just wrecked his stupid little car and like.
Go to commercial.
He couldn't even hit anybody with his electricity. And
he got the nerdy at the when he was putting the coat in.
Oh yeah,
that's the only kill he got.
That's right, he did. Oh yeah, you're right. But yeah, his stupid little car just made me like, what the hell is this guy doing?
Here's a big 6'9" Arnold Schwarzenegger outrunning him in a dune buggy.
Calling him a Christmas tree. But there's the good wide picture of Wilbur Dam. Now, dude, one of my in-laws or my wife's family, they actually were up there putting their boat in, and somebody fell in and drowned on them. The girl that's my wife's relative was a lifeguard and was actually able to save one of them, but she couldn't save the other guy. But it's
next to the dam, or what?
Yeah, they were right up here when, and I guess they started generating, and they weren't supposed to be in that water right then. And
the current was too much.
Yeah, it kept pulling them under. And
that's some cold water. Generated because like it pulls it from the bottom, and by the time that water comes out of the bottom, the water hasn't seen sunlight in weeks at that point. It'll make I'm telling you, people, like if you think you know cold water, and maybe you do, but that water hitting you like so cold when you're all of a sudden you're in normal water, and all of a sudden the ice water hits your feet. It just locks you up.
Even miles down from the dam, and you measure the water, and it's like 50 degrees, which doesn't sound that cold, but it is cold.
It's cold.
Yeah, and that's a couple miles downstream. You know, I'm sure right out there if you measured it.
There was a girl. I don't know if you
colder.
were at Unaka at the time. One of the girls that wore the Seventh Day Adventist dresses. There was a couple of those girls at Unaka, and one of them drowned in the lake, and they were swimming up there. And that's kind of what happened. Was they theorized that maybe she just didn't account for the way back and how much harder it is to swim in that kind of cold water.
Well, this is a 77-foot high structure, and it started off with two turbines in it, two turbines and magnetos or dynamos, and the Doe River Electric Power Company back in 1909 had it built, and I'm pretty sure that the Army Corps of Engineers built this one too. The Army Corps of Engineers actually built Watauga Dam, and this one, you know, you'd kind of think that this one was the newer dam because Watauga Dam is earthen and it just looks like a big pile of rocks. But it generates power too. But they built it right after the Second World War. This one was built right before the First World War, and this thing, you know, used Tesla's research of how to basically, because Tesla did have the idea for the hydroelectric dam. I'm not sure if he actually patented it, but he conceived of the idea, and this was one of the earliest ones in America. They then added another generating unit in 1926, and then when the TVA acquired it in 1945, they added another one. So it does 11 megawatts, and it's in Elizabethton, Tennessee, and you can come up, and a lot of people fish up there. You can put your boat in down below it, but you're not supposed to get too close up here to this part when you put it in. You know, you're supposed to keep it around here. But if you get floated up there, you can get in big trouble. But they'll open up these gates right here, these spillway gates, and they usually only open up about 2 of them at a time, don't they? And yeah, you can get a good push down the water in a raft, and there's a big industry in here. And that's, you know, when we were talking about tourism, I said I bet that's part of the tourism industry that I didn't consider is guided raft tours. You know, they're running buses up and down that road all summer. And
up in Vanderbilt.
Yeah.
Is that where it is? The big rafting service.
Yeah, there's Nolichucky has them big up there, and then we have them right here. I went on one of those on Nolichucky. A friend of mine when I was probably in my early 20s. His father did business with this lawyer who invited everybody he was doing business with, like bring your whole family, as many people as you want, and we're going to go on this rafting tour. So we all went on this thing, and it was we rode kayaks. Like you could pick, they like, you want to ride a raft, you want to ride a kayak, up to you. So we did these kayaks, man, and went down the Nolichucky through a couple of level 4 rapids, and I'd never done anything like that before, but man, it was fun. I did not want to. I was so scared of trying to flip that kayak over. If I actually managed to not tip over. I think I was the only one that didn't tip over the whole way down.
Don't have to.
I was terrified of having to get back up. Yeah, I did not let it flip. But it was a lot of fun. It was pretty terrifying, but it was exhilarating. You don't get quite that from Little Wilbur and the Watauga River. There are a couple of spots where you'll get like good, like a low level 3 or a high level 2. Most of it's pretty easy, especially if you're in a big raft. But it's a lot of fun. But
people get killed on the Nolichucky.
Oh yeah,
that's a dangerous river sometimes.
When I was a kid, we went. We would just get.
Wasn't that like its
inner tubes?
name?
Yeah.
For the name of the river for Nolichucky, isn't it something? What's that mean?
Oh, I don't know.
It's Noli and Chucky, which means. I don't have that.
But
no, it's a Native American term, and it's.
What we're about to figure.
Yeah.
Let's see if Google can tell us.
A river in North Carolina. Well, Google, that ain't what it means.
Cherokee Village, it means spruce tree place. It was nicknamed John Sevier was nicknamed Nolichucky Jack, who we have talked about John Sevier ad nauseum on here. But
okay. Maybe I'm thinking of something else. But
it may be like a lot of those. They disagree over the meaning of the word Watauga too. Some of it means beautiful water, some of it means hidden something or hidden beauty. There's lots of different ideas people had about some of these old Indian words, especially. So yeah, after they had a flood in 1940 there at Wilbur Dam, and it destroyed the powerhouse, and when they rebuilt it, that was when the TVA took it over. As you know, they took over all the dams and waterways, and you know the name of it was flood control. So there's the old Titan, looking like a steampunk dam in a lot of ways. You can
drive right by it.
Oh yeah.
Throw a rock and hit it from the street. It's so close.
Oh yeah,
to
you can walk right up. There's a gate right here. You can see it.
The street connects to the dam even for you to drive right across it.
Yeah, well, not for you to drive, but for the TVA to drive across it. Now you can walk across the Watauga Dam. That's part of your Appalachian Trail. It goes across the earthen dam up there.
Oh, the earth dam.
Yeah.
Show a picture of that sucker. That thing. How many earth dams do you think are in America or even?
I don't know. There's quite a few around here.
I'll tell you one that kind of is unsettling, but I guess we don't really think about it because we're so far away from it. Is when you go over to what was that big ass one over in like Kingsport, the Holston.
There's South Holston and there's Patrick Henry Dam. They're both pretty good size.
The Holston freaks me out when you're driving up to it when you realize that you're just driving straight and you're like, oh God, the dam is over all of us.
Yeah, yeah, because this is the side you see of Watauga Dam, and the Appalachian Trail goes across here. You walk right across. When I was a kid, we went out and got on these.
You got an air view of the drain.
Well, that's over on the other side. We'd jump in the water off
bad
these.
dreams about falling into it.
yeah.
Yeah, I never had a bad dream, but I was always worried about it. You know, look how far away you are from it when you're looking down there.
You're tremendously far away.
There's no way you can fall into it.
Like, oh God, what if I fell in there?
But we used to jump off of these things into the water. That was fun. But yeah, the not Fort Patrick Henry, but the South Holston Dam, like you said, it's like hundreds of feet up because you're on the other side of it when you come up.
That fucker broke it. Kingsport would be gone.
Yeah. And the same with this one. It would not be good news for Stony Creek and Blue Springs if that one were to break.
I'd be safe. I specifically bought a house on such a hill that I'm high enough to be fine unless God decides to, pimp slap me.
Yep.
That sounds paranoid, folks, but I have got all these stories about floods. It's been Bible, number one. Grandma told me about the one from the 40s, and then my parents tell me about the time that they had to ride around in a raft up there because it broke again. So, we have floods around here, so I was not about to not buy a house on a big fat hill. What was the one where Rome Mountain got 2 feet of snow and then it rained 6 inches the next day? And
98.
Yes, 98 flooded, killed some people. So,
destroyed the school.
I got no desire to be near rivers, is all I'm saying. I'm a Highlander, and that's where I'm going to keep my paranoid white ass.
I'm right there with you. Well, I think that's a good place to wind it up for tonight. I appreciate y'all being with us. We could have drug on forever talking Tesla stuff, but
Tesla liked pigeons.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how we can end it. Tesla had a thing for pigeons in his old age. He would bring pigeons into his old apartment and like make houses for them and keep them. Which I imagine his apartment smelled absolutely atrocious. But that always brought me back to the thing of there was a thing I heard on the History Channel, and I can't find anything on the Google about it. But I heard a girl saying that it was rumored that Tesla used to make shoes for pigeons. And I don't know if that's true or not. I can't find anything about it. But I've been mortified about that ever since I found out that humans are the biggest blight to pigeons. Do you know this?
No.
Okay.
Oh, the Resi 1008. We haven't seen you before. Nice to have you in here. Sorry we didn't get your chat earlier. We'll get you in a second. Go ahead.
Oh,
another pigeon.
In big cities where pigeons like to flock, human hair will get wrapped around their toes. If you ever want to see something sad, look up pigeon feet and find out what human hair does to pigeon feet. It takes their toes off. And so if you go to a big city, just look at the pigeon's feet. Over half of the pigeon have no toes. They're just walking around on stumps because human hair clumps hit their feet. They can't get it off, so the human hair wraps around their toe, causes the toe to blow up and look like a literal piece of gravel until the toe comes off. And so there's pigeons all over every big city with like big, fat, gnarly looking feet.
Is that why they call people pigeon toes when their toes turn in?
I think it's because the toes do this. But if you look at pigeon feet, look it up. What the effect of human hair has on pigeon feet.
Never heard that. Let's see. We had a new member in the chat here. Nice to have you with us, the Rez. Let's see.
I summoned the Rez with my talk of pigeon feet. So
all right,
welcome.
missed a couple chat here. Spiel says Cali rent is stupid. Don't know why I stay. The weather, honestly, yeah. Well, it's got its pros and cons. To me, the weather looks really nice, but I don't think it outweighs the cons to me. But everybody has to make that decision personally. There are some really nice, especially in upstate California, areas of California, and a lot of people in that area are like a lot of the people around here.
Just outside the city. The cities are just the spots that give it a bad name, really.
Yeah, and the city controls the policy for the whole state. Sacramento's up in North California, but it's a lot of the big city, San Francisco's in North California too. But those big metropolises are ultimately what drives the policy. So the people who live there do love California. It's a beautiful place, and I can understand their defiant nature wanting to stay. I mean, that was how California was born in the gold rush. People have been going out there and risking it all. Let's see here. Yeah, the Resi says, you can hear what I mentioned about with Trump's inference in his last CPAC speech. It was disturbing, and he says wild things, but they always turn out true. Yeah, no, he does. He has an uncanny record of predicting things that sound crazy. And just the whole idea that Trump ever was president. Just go back to 2010. Where you remember, when was it? Probably 2011, 12, when he was arguing on Twitter. He was hosting The Apprentice. He was hosting The Celebrity Apprentice. He was arguing on Twitter saying that Barack Obama's birth certificate wasn't real. He was basically not looked at as a serious person. And to the idea that...
Neither was Biden.
Well, no, Biden was...
Just as a throwaway candidate. He wasn't supposed to even be on the podium.
Yeah, they stuck him in there so people wouldn't feel so, I guess, scared of Barack Obama. They needed their stable old white man plagiarist, I guess, to be the vice president. But at any rate, the whole idea that Trump would be the president would have been insane to people. And the whole idea that Joe Biden now, and walking. I mean, we remember Bush. He had gaffes and stuff, and people made fun of him. He was terrible president for a lot of reasons we discussed on this show. But
man, Bush has nothing on Biden at
this
point.
Exactly.
It's not even like me taking a stance. Like it's wild to see.
The idea that we would go downhill from Bush would seem crazy. Alvin's
onto the pigeon at the bottom.
Alvin's in the shadow of the Holston Dam, so he knows what we're talking about. And he says Nolichucky is Cherokee for no way we're moving to Kentucky. Let's see.
Shadow of the Nolichucky.
Pigeon guano.
What is it?
The Rez talking about pigeon guano. No thanks. Not in Tesla's house full of pigeon guano. Can you imagine?
Yeah, the string feet is where their toes fall off because of human hair.
Yeah, the Resi says in San Francisco, the pigeon that has super stumpy toes, they call them flying rats. They dig in the trash a lot and get stuff on their feet. Yeah, dude, they're in some places in Tennessee, they're considered wildlife without special permitting, and then you can, the cities can take them out. But in a lot of places, they are considered vermin and are able to be shot.
A lot of those places are called cities, and if you live there, you shouldn't be allowed to vote because it's a fucking bird. It's a vermin. We should kill it. And so, okay, let's hide the antidote to the. Never mind.
Well, I mean, don't throw out a ton of garbage and food into the streets, and you won't be attracting large masses of scavenger birds.
I don't want to be anti-humanist or anti-human or anything like that, but it's just a weird attitude.
Well, I mean, you'd think it would be, if you're living in a city, you want to have a waste system that, everybody's got to live here. We're all in a tight place. We need to have the waste put in sealed containers so that, rats and pigeons and everything else.
They don't. They just throw it in the front because.
That's what I'm saying.
I'm grouping everybody into New York City, but I'm going to say something. I know this is a dumb way to end it, but I think of all the cities, since I mentioned this one earlier, brought up the pigeon, the string feet thing. I think the best city in the world, hands down, period, is actually Las Vegas. You know what? It's the only honest city. Every single city out there says, come to our paradise. There's totally no PDF files here, and there's totally nobody getting graped up the butt. Nobody's getting hurt here. And Vegas says, hey, come here. You might die, but it's going to be a good time. And that's the only city that outright says, hey, it's evil here. Come on in. Everybody else
The name means the devils. So, I mean, yeah.
New York pretends to be Vegas. I don't know how to... New York is the worst city. It's the lamest city. I don't have the words for it. Anybody that lives there is demented, and you should leave now because your city's shit. I know you say you love it, but your city's terrible. You love something that's not worth loving, and it devalues you as a person to stay there. You Stockholm-induced poor individual.
The New York of the 80s and 90s is no more. It's unfortunate, and how much of that was real, because honestly mine, it comes from movies and televisions, but definitely seemed to have a sort of magic and a beat to the city.
It's all a lie, though. It's all a lie, I really think.
But that's all stuff I've seen from Hollywood, too.
Because they're like, oh, look at all these shows and stuff we got. And it's like, yeah, they got shows in Vegas, too, and they're better. It's like, oh, go to Broadway. So I can go to Vegas and not pay $200 for a ticket, and I don't get mugged on the way.
And you can watch Garth Brooks flying from the rafters on a zip line.
Yeah, exactly. I can go down, Garth Brooks, Celine Dion. And if I go to freaking New York right now, all I can see is like Bruce Springsteen up there going, Glory Days! And it's like, I don't see that shit. New York, you suck. You're the worst thing that's ever existed.
Isn't he, he's from New Jersey, isn't he?
Same thing. It's just junior New York.
Just the smellier New York. The Garden State, though, it's the whole state is beautiful except for the places where people live.
Is New Jersey the Garden State?
Yeah. I mean, it really is pretty. They have all those pine barrens and stuff.
Atlantic City was pretty.
But where the people live,
pretty grim.
Not so much. Yeah, Spill, you can't do city. I can't either. You a mole person there, Resi?
Hey, mole people, I think Teresa. That's where we originated. We came out of the ground. I'm telling you, we're the ascenders. We're the squishy things that came up out of the ground on Gears of War. We just don't know we're the demons. We're so convinced we're the good guys, we don't realize that we're the evil ones. This is hell, and we're the watchers.
Well, they had do you remember the Iced Earth album? I think it was a trilogy, where they basically had the idea that we're people from another planet who came here and convinced the magical people who lived here to basically we defeated them militarily.
Y'all got no factories? Why'd you got no factories?
Yeah, we defeated them militarily, and they basically erased all of our memories, and that's why we don't know what the hell we're doing here. And then we started basically recreating our roving, consuming society. Las Vegas is famous for mole people, and NY too.
Oh, I've seen the subway streets.
Oh, you're scared of them? Okay. I've not heard of mole people in the cities.
I don't know if they're talking about like literal mole people, or if they're just talking about people that dwell under the ground. Those people, people are down there.
There's a movie from 1956, The Mole People. They're called tunnel dwellers. Oh, they're homeless people living under these large cities. Oh, okay. I didn't know that's what we were talking about. Oh, yeah. No, man, I'm telling you, I believe that every bit, because we went, when I was a kid and I was a teenager, we used to go into abandoned buildings, and we would go into, like, there was an old hospital around here that basically was just
Is it the one that's
They
gone
just
now?
closed all the doors. I mean, all the drugs and chemicals and everything was still there. People had gone in and raided the drugs. There were still all kinds of chemicals.
You
and
got
stuff.
it in the morgue?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we did too.
I went through everything of it, and we also went to the old North American Rayon or Bimberg building, and there was when we went to the Bimberg building.
Bimberg's dangerous.
Oh yeah, it's very dangerous. But when we were, I was probably 13, 14, went in there with a group of about 5 of us. And we hadn't got in very far into one of the big buildings. There was like these collapsed staircases and rusted out stuff. And we were walking, and all of a sudden this homeless man, I'll never forget the smell. He came running out with us. He had an old gun. It looked like a Jennings 25 or something. It only had one grip on it, and you could see inside his magazine there. And he was waving around and just going, and he had no tongue. He was yelling at us, waving a gun in our face. But I couldn't understand what the hell he was saying, but I knew what he meant. So I turned around and went the other way. Yeah. So I can imagine if you had groups of, roving groups of people under there. Luckily, this guy didn't want to hurt us. He just wanted us to leave him alone. And, you got to hope if you run into somebody like that, that's all they want too, is to be left alone. But, there's definitely a lot of places to hide in those old cities. Even a small city like Johnson City and Elizabethton has a whole network of tunnels underneath the town where they can access all the sewers.
Prohibition tunnels in Johnson City.
Yeah.
If you look into those, where they were running liquor underneath Johnson City.
Yep. Johnson City, little San Francisco, little Chicago. Hey, listen, I appreciate y'all joining us tonight. The Resi, I don't know if it's Teresi or the Resi. Teresi 1008, so glad to have you with us tonight. I hope you'll join us again. We're on here live Wednesdays and Sundays at 10 p.m. Eastern every week, and every week we do news and current events on the Wednesday show, and we do a topic of some sort
on Sunday.
That's right. And we're going to get back into a little more unhinged behavior with Moose Roberts and hopefully Bruce Campbell. Not Bruce Campbell. Bruce Williams. If we had Moose Roberts and Bruce Campbell on the same show, yeah, that'd be a legend. All right. Night, everybody. Appreciate y'all joining us. Like the video if you haven't already and share it around with us. Go check out those articles in the description. Thanks, y'all. Have a good night. And we are out of here.